Hey YouTube, this episode's going to be a little bit different. For one thing, I am by myself today, and I'm actually going to a place I haven't been in about 5 or 6 years to check the site of one of my all-time favorite finds. 20 years ago, a friend of mine named Jim Chaney began finding pieces of a huge Mosasaur washing into a small feeder creek of the Sulphur River. He couldn't find where they were coming in, but these were jaw pieces, mainly pieces of the skull he was finding, and it was obvious this was an enormous creature. Well, Jim brought me in on the hunt, and for about a year, every time it rained, we raced up to this little feeder creek, and every time we would find more pieces. We were finding vertebrae so large they weighed 7 or 8 pounds each. Pieces of the skull, broken off processes, ribs, and finally in the fall of 2001, after a year of searching together and him finding skull pieces for a couple of years before that, we found where it was coming out. Now at that point the entire skull had scattered and shattered downstream, but we found the bulk of the body of this massive Tylosaurus prorigor. He was a solid 48, 50-foot animal, huge mosasaur. And we excavated about 75 vertebrae totaled. We brought in SMU on it. A paleontologist by the name of Mike Polson helped us get the animal out. But when we finished our dig, the last 10 feet of tail was still going up under the bank of the creek. There was so much overburden on top of it, we just didn't have the manpower to dig him out. About 5 or 6 years ago, I came back down here. I'd gone back for several years, but was finding fewer and fewer pieces. Finally quit finding pieces of him at all. But about 6 years ago, I walked all the way up to the bank where he was coming out, and I found 3 vertebrae hanging out of the bank. I haven't been back to the site since then, so I'm going to go back one more time. This whole end of the river is about to go underwater with new lake construction. We're going to lose it forever, so I thought I'd check the site on this beautiful, windy, warm November day and just see if there's anything left to find. And I'll get back with you if there is. Well, I'm about halfway up to the site, and to my astonishment, there's no footprints in the creek. This has been a very dry fall. The river is like Grand Central Station. I mean, I've still managed to find a few things, but the river has been tough sledding this fall. And nearly all the creeks have been walked too, but I'm seeing no human footprints, just a few wild hog tracks. Of course, as you can see, looking around behind me here, it is solid leaves. So it's not very good conditions for hunting, but at least, you know, if a couple of those big old vertebrae have washed in from the bank, there's a chance I might find them. I'll let you know if I do. Well, I am up to the spot, and this is the best fossil I've found. Not even a trace of bone anywhere. But I did manage to find the exact place. You can see there's several more of these fossilized clams, all coming out of the same layer through here. A bunch of them. They're called Inoceremus. They're one of the more common fossils of this era. But not a scrap of bone have I found. Well, this is the place. Near as I could tell now, the creek was about 4 foot shallower then. It has cut down a good bit, so what is at eye level now was about a foot above the floor of the creek. And that was where we excavated about 55 vertebrae, a couple of flipper bones, a ton of ribs and chevron bones attached to them, shark's teeth all around where sharks had nibbled on him after he was dead. The skull, unfortunately, had already shattered and scattered downstream by that point. Last time I was here 6 years ago, I found 2 vertebrae hung in the wall right there sticking out, and then one down on the bend there that had washed around, but I just don't think it's gotten high enough to wash anything else out. So underneath 15 feet of overburden there, somewhere is still the last 10 feet of this critter's tail. Who knows, maybe one day it'll wash out with the lake going in that day, maybe several thousand years from now. At any rate, he's safe for now. Well, it looks like I may have spoken too soon. I poked at the bank with my stick a little bit just to collapse some of the stuff that had worked loose over the summer, and I believe I've exposed a tail vertebrae here. Now keep in mind, this is down towards the end of the tail. Up near the base of the tail, they were a lot bigger. I'm going to dig them out and see what there is. I'm still a little bit in disbelief that after so many years, there's still pieces of him hanging in the bank here. But there it is. I'm about to try and pop it on out. I really didn't even bring any digging tools with me. But I am quite excited. It's the first piece I've found off this animal since about 2014. just with no digging tool but my stick, I managed to pop out not one, but two tail vertebrae from my big boy. Amazing that he's still here 20 years later. I know there's more of them in the wall here, but I don't have any tools. And you can tell I damaged this one getting it out. So I'm going to take these home and clean them up and see where it goes from there. What a thrill. And I was really prepared to be disappointed. I popped loose one little loose section of shell and saw that first bone, and there the rest of it was. There is still more of him under this bank. Okay, we're back at the car now. Here's a pretty little ammonite I found on my way out. Here's one tail vertebrae. Now I'm going to have to soak these and clean them. There's still a lot of outside matrix. And unfortunately the arches came out in pieces. See, there's a big piece that goes to that vertebrae. You can see the ball and socket on it. I'm going to take these home and soak them up and clean them up. And they'll look a whole lot better when I get them back together. Just astonishes me that 20 years later, I'm still able to find this much of him. The last set of vertebrae I pulled out here were quite a bit bigger than this. I found 3 vertebrae in 2014 that were all about softball size. This one's baseball size, this one's a little smaller. So I imagine a few of the intervening vertebrae have probably fallen into the creek. If I go down there after a fresh rain, I might even find a few of them uncovered on the gravel bars, but there's definitely some more of them still left in the bank after all these years. So I may have to come back and do one more dig, I don't know. But it sure was a thrill to find these after so long. My friend Joe's on a different part of the river, different bridge, and I'm about to go check and see what he's found. So we'll check back in a few. All right, just came up to the bridge, and my friend Joe found this really cool, massive piece of, I guess, skull from a prehistoric fish. One preformed, one broken point, and a few other rolled bones. Say hi, Joe.
Hi.
All right. Okay, it is the next day. I've got these cleaned off a little bit, glued back together. You can see there's the neural arch on the big one. I've cleaned off most of the ball. There's the 2 sockets. Now this orange stuff that's clinging to the outside will flake off over time. I just don't want to get too aggressive with cleaning while I'm still putting them together. That's the larger of the 2 tail vertebrae. Now this is interesting. This is a chevron bone. Actually, part of a chevron bone. Chevron bone is shaped like a Y. This is one of the 2 upper parts, and it actually connects down here like that and forms the second arch. So you have a tall neural arch here, the chevron going down here, and that's what enables him to swim. It gives bone structure to the muscles of his tail. And then here is the smaller vertebrae. It was lying almost on top of the other one. You can see it's got an intact neural arch, and there's the eye sockets, as you call them, where the chevron bone would attach. Now this is really kind of interesting. It's a measure of how you can't judge the size of an animal by vertebrae. You pick up a small vertebrae like this in the river, you think, oh, that's a small tylosaur. I've seen the vertebrae from the front half of this skeleton. This guy was a 50-footer. This just happens to be way down near the end of the tail. So that's what they look like after I got them home and got them cleaned up. So that's it for today, folks. An interesting venture, a stroll down memory lane, and a new discovery from an old specimen. So we'll be seeing you next time, and eventually, hopefully, we'll get some rain before this whole thing goes under the lake. Talk to you soon. Don't forget to check out my books on Amazon. Have a great time. Till next episode.